In this week's video, I've come to Comrie, to the Deil's Cauldron, or the Devil's Cauldron, to shoot some waterfalls, and I'm going to try and introduce a slightly darker tone to these images. It is, after all, the Devil's Cauldron. Okay, let me talk you through this. I think this might well be my first composition. What I like here is you've got the leading line of the water coming up to that lovely little S-bend and drawing the eye up to this kind of cauldron type shape. This isn't the actual Devil's Cauldron, I should probably point that out, but it's just one of the lower falls. I particularly like this arcing branch, which is kind of framing the waterfall. Some beautiful yellows on this tree here, which when the sun comes out catches those yellows, and that again, that kind of frames. And every now and again the light breaks through and hits these boulders, so I'm going to wait for that. But before the light comes, I'm going to grab a couple of shots, because once you get that direct light, the whites in the waterfall are burning out. So I'm hoping that I can shoot a couple of the waterfall as it is just now, and then when the light breaks through, the sun breaks through the clouds, it'll illuminate this tree, the boulders, and I can catch an image of that. Right, let me talk you through what I did there. I actually ended up taking 3 or 4 shots. What I was doing was I was focusing on this rock here, but in some of the shots I've actually got the waterfall way off to the top left of the frame. In others it's more central. And the reason I was doing that was I wanted to create this illusion of the leading line taking you down to these rocks here, which the sun's just picking out in the darkness as well. I'm actually quite significantly underexposing, and that's because I want to make this look quite moody, quite dark and quite mysterious. So I'm deliberately underexposing, and now I'm just going to swap my lens over to the 24-105 and see if we can get some tightly cropped images in here. As you can see, I've zoomed right into the waterfalls now. I've focused on exactly the same rock as I was using earlier. We've got it as a vertical format, and that's allowing us to have the water coming in from around about the centre of the frame, snaking its way down and then falling in that little drop. Like before, a couple of separate exposure times, partly to try and freeze. As you can probably see here, these leaves are moving quite a bit, so I'm trying to freeze those leaves and also freeze some of the detail in the water. But then I'm going back and reshooting exactly the same image but with a longer exposure. And the hope is that I can blend them in some way. Right, I'm actually just at the top of those falls now. This here is the snake that was making its way around before the first drop. And we have a little series of cascades here. So I'm just looking around to see if there's a shot here. There's also some cascades just a little bit further up there, but they're in direct sunlight, so I'm not quite sure if I'll be able to use those for much. But here, the light's a lot more dappled, and so I think it might be possible to pick out a composition or two. I'll come back to you if I find anything. Okay, let me talk you through this shot. I'm now above that little fall that I was shooting first, and I'm shooting a little bit further upstream, so you can see we've got falls here, a little cascade here, another one further up. So I'm basically just working my way up the falls. The problem is it's very dark, except for those patches where the light is coming through and hitting the white on the falls, and those are burning out very, very easily. So I'm having to take multiple exposures for each shot. Same thing as before though, I'm focusing on a rock nearby the main cascade, exposing first of all for the cascade, so I'm quite a fast shutter speed, freezing the water, and then I'm reshooting the same shot but exposing for the rock and the surrounding shadow areas, and the hope is that I'll be able to blend them together. This particular fall here is catching quite a bit of direct sunlight, so I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to take an image of that without making the entire background almost completely jet black. So, but I might actually shoot that, because that might work with the kind of theme that I'm going for just now. And before I move on, I'm just going to try and take a shot of this little lip here where the water's pouring over, because unlike that part, it's not quite catching as much direct light, so you're getting a beautiful kind of glistening effect on the surface of the water just as it falls over the lip of the cascade. So I'm going to maybe grab that shot, and then we'll move further upstream and see if there's anything up in this area. That was lucky. I was literally just packing up when the sun disappeared behind another cloud. So I've taken that shot beginning here at the lower cascade, up through the falls to that top fall. So again, similar idea, reasonably dark background, the waterfall snaking its way down. Oh, and there's the light coming back again, I think. That was very fortunate, that. I'll leave you with that image just now. Okay, right, I don't normally shoot images where I'm looking down on a waterfall because I don't think they look particularly interesting, but what has caught my attention here is not the waterfall at all, it's the shadow of these leaves on the rock there, and the kind of leading line that the leaves are making, taking you down to the rock, which has also got a kind of a striated surface there, and again that's almost continuing the line of the shadows down towards the water. What I'll do is I'll pop you in camera at the moment. I'll show you the video that I'm making at the same time as I'm recording this part, and that is giving you something unusual, I think, in that you've got the leading line of the shadows and then the rock. You've got another line which is drawing the eye in from the bottom here, which is the waterfall itself, and they're kind of creating quite an interesting little area there in the centre. I've no idea if it'll work or not, but it's all about experimentation, isn't it, when you're out in the field? And at the moment I kind of like the look of that, so if it's worked I'll stick it on the screen. Right, that might have worked, I'm not sure. The problem was the light was coming and going so quickly that you'd set up an exposure and then the sun would come out from behind the cloud, it would get very bright, the exposure would be ruined. So I've had to take multiple exposures of pretty much every shot so far. We're currently behind a cloud, I think, by the looks of it, but I can see any second now we're going to get some direct light again. Yeah. So keep showing your toes, right? I'm going to move upstream a little bit further, up closer towards the Deil's Cauldron. Right, let me talk you through this one. I quite like this, but again, as before, I've got a whole range of problems I'm going to have to overcome with this. The main ones being exposure, so you've got this bright area here and this dark area here, but also there's movement in these leaves here. There's a problem of this foreground is a lot closer than that distant waterfall there, so there's a problem with focus. Where do you focus? Do you focus here? Do you focus there? So I'm having to take multiple exposures. So I've taken a shot here, focused on that rock, and I've exposed for the rocks here. I've also taken a faster shutter speed in this area, where I've opened up the aperture and taken a faster speed. And the reason for that is I want to try and freeze the motion in these leaves. I've then refocused on this far waterfall and did the same again. I've taken a series of different exposures, hopefully going to catch the highlights in the waterfall, not burn them out. But again, I love this reflection, which is why I'm not using a polarizer or anything like that. I don't want to get rid of that reflection. I think that makes the image. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of post-processing in this one, I think, but I like it. I think it's probably going to work. I hope so anyway. I'm now standing above, well, next to that tree that had the overhanging branch, and looking back downstream towards where I was shooting earlier. I was over in this area earlier shooting this way. I really like this. It's a combination of the sort of things I've been shooting previously. So you've got these pools here which are offering a little bit of reflection. You've got some lovely colour reflections in the water just down here. You've obviously got the cascade. You've got some interesting rock formations in the background, and every now and again we get a little bit of light in this area here. It's starting to come through just now, and that breaks up what would otherwise be a very dark part of the scene. And again, I've got to say, I like that on the back of the camera. That looks very nice. Again, very moody. I'll probably slightly underexpose it, or when I'm doing the processing, I'll process it a little bit darker than it is at the moment. But yeah, I like that shot. I like it, and because I'm higher up and looking down, I'm not having to worry about the sky being included. I'm excluding most of the leaves which are moving, so again, it's not really an issue. So it's a good old-fashioned one-shot landscape image. I'm just having to be careful not to burn out the highlights. But yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Right, I've come a little further forward, maybe about 2 metres closer to the edge, and I've got to say, I think this might actually be an improvement again. What I like about it is it's essentially the same composition that I had from 2 metres back, apart from one very important distinction, and that is this overhanging tree is now more clearly defined against the darker background. When I was away back there, it was kind of blending with everything else, whereas from here, as you can probably see, it's in that corner, and that is making it more obvious that it's being used as a framing tool, if you see what I mean. Everything else is pretty much the same. We've still got the puddles, we've still got the interesting stones, but because that branch is effectively coming down, across and down again, and that's framing the water, it's more obvious now because it's against a darker background. That's the only thing I've really changed, but I think I prefer it. I think it's a better composition. We also have now a better view of the cascade and those stones and those puddles, because we're a bit more shooting along them rather than off to the side, which is where I was. So now we're shooting directly along those cascades. That branch is more obviously being used as a framing tool, and again, because we're shooting down, we're avoiding any risk of hitting direct sunlight or even the sky. Alright, I've taken two shots, one horizontal, one vertical, and it is pretty much the waterfall. But what I've done is, what I was talking about earlier, I've basically just focused for the waterfall, exposed for the waterfall, and thrown all of this area into almost complete blackness. I've then taken another exposure where I've exposed for just a little hint of the leaves, so not much, there's still a lot of black area in the image, in the frame, and that's obviously caused the water to burn out, so I'm going to have to juggle that a little bit and see if we can adjust the blend in post-processing. My ideal is that we're going to have the waterfall perfectly exposed with just a little hint of movement in the water and a little hint of foliage around it, but essentially a jet black image apart from those very few highlights. So yeah, slightly underwhelming if I'm honest, but I've taken a couple of shots. So yeah, I suspected. I've got a steady stream of people going up to be unimpressed by the view. That's a problem, isn't it, when there's restricted access to a view, and also the fact that somebody else has constructed the view in the first place means you're kind of limited to what they thought was the best view. Yeah, I genuinely don't know what that is. Looks like some sort of storage bunker or air raid shelter or something like that, doesn't it? No idea. If anybody does know, leave me a comment, will you? So that's us for the Deil's Cauldron. Hope you enjoyed. If you want to continue with the devilish theme, then you might enjoy my videos from the Devil's Pulpit near Glasgow. I'll leave a link to that on the screen just now. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, bye.